Hey IDs, welcome to Module 9. We're getting up there. We're almost in the double digits, so we're getting nearer and nearer to the end, and we should be fully employed in our project right now. And I hope that that's going very well. This week, Module 9 is a very important one. It's the instructor's perspective. And many of you may be asking yourself, well, what is instructor perspective? I know that that's the case more than likely because I actually had an instructor come up to me asking me about that very thing. What is this thing that's called instructor perspective? Well, it's kind of interesting because, by and large, we've all known that when we're talking about, traditional, higher ed courses in particular, right? We have some very important parts of it, right? We have the readings, we have examinations and projects, and of course we have the lecture, right? The lecture has kind of been something of a dirty word lately, where it's like, lecture is a place where, a very, very well qualified stands up behind a podium and pontificates on his expertise or her expertise, and and we all laud at what that person is doing. So it's kind of like doesn't have that that kind of original intent with what the lecture was meant to be, and so is this a euphemism for lecture? I don't know. It may be that that's the case, that it's really kind of just a different way of referring to the lecture, but I like to be intentional about what was meant to be in the first place, and the instructor obviously is extremely important, right? Because they're the experts on the subject that's being taught. And what's really important with that instructor is that we want to be able to use their expertise, right? Because each and every instructor, even if it's the same subject, is going to be totally different. I'll give you an example. I'm reading a biography of George Washington right now. Now, the interesting thing is that there are a handful of great Washington historians, right? But they all have access to one very finite set of primary documents that are attributed to George Washington. There is, when you're talking about historical documents that are primary, they're limited, right? They're not, there's not many of them. Now, all the great historians are working off that limited amount of primary documents. But the interesting thing is, what makes all of their biographies different, of George Washington, say, is that they all come from different backgrounds. They have different experiences. Some are from the South, some are from the North, and all that plays in to what the perspective is of that particular expert. That's really the value that the instructor brings to a course, is that unique expertise. So I think that that's really what the instructor perspective is. It is, what is it that the instructor brings that adds value to the course? That's what I think. All right. Now, insofar as that's what it is, what is it not? Well, that I think I can answer too. One thing I don't think it is taking what's already there and just redoing it, which is what happens in a lot of cases, as you probably know, right? Taking the textbook and then just make it into a 20-minute or 90-minute narrative is not really instructor perspective. It isn't adding the value that comes from the instructor's expertise. So I think that's what separates the things, right? And that's what we're looking for. What you're going to see this week, which is really kind of cool, is you're going to see a number of instructor perspectives and what it can look like in an online course. We have this kind of thing. This is an instructor perspective, I would claim, right? Because I'm adding my expertise and sharing it. But there are ways that you can do it in other ways. For instance, how do you explain how the best way to solve some kind of an equation? Well, that's an instructor perspective in some ways, right? Because the expertise is there. All right, so that's what you should be kind of keying in on for this week, and that's what we're looking for. So one of the great things about your course is it's going to include one of these instructor perspectives, and you should be thinking about those things. Now, one other thing that I don't want to forget, and it's actually something that's reasonably new to me, and I'm actually kind of working on this and investigating it and so forth. Is this whole idea of instructor presence. That's another thing that's particular to online courses that we can add when we have a good instructor perspective. We know that good online courses or great online courses aren't just taking PDFs and videos, uploading it, adding an assignment, and calling it a course. That's not okay. All right. There needs to be the presence of the instructor. Now, how do we do that? Well, the instructor perspective is a good way of creating the involvement of the instructor, even though we're at a distance, right? It's taking the distance out of distance learning. And so that's a really important thing. How is it that the instructor is adding their presence into the course so that you know that they're there, right? Are they doing an announcement like this? Are they responding accordingly to the discussion board? Are they commenting on on journal assignments and things like that, adding their presence, right? So, I think the media presence is very important, especially in this type of course, because you want to feel connected with the instructor, right? But of course, it's not limited to this. It's also in the way that you provide your feedback as well. So keep those two things in mind: instructor presence, along with the perspective, the unique stamp that an instructor can add to a course. Those are the things that we're looking for. All right, and keep an eye out on those things when you're critiquing the number of multimedia pieces that you see this week with instructor perspective, and what do you think of them? It's really interesting, the results I see with which instructor presence students favor as opposed to not favor, in that list of examples. All right, so have a really good week, and I look forward to. I can't wait to see the multimedia. So I'm going to be looking at those this week. It's exciting. All right, so have a great week. Bye bye.